Thanks, Sophie. You're watching South East Today. Our top story tonight. The Isle of Sheppey's struggling secondary school will be split in two after a damning Ofsted inspection.
We've explained to our children that there's going to be change and obviously it's going to be a lot better for them.
Acute staffing pressures in southeast jails with prison officers bussed in from the north of England and a sharp increase in assaults. Sheppey United's FA Cup fairy tale. They're the lowest ranked team to reach the competition's first round.
Golf Bravo 4 Sierra Papa Tango calling and standing by for a scheduled contact with the International Space Station. Over.
Golf Bravo 4 Sierra Papa Tango.
And the pupils aiming for the stars as they're taught science from the International Space Station. Hello, welcome to the programme. I'm Ellie Crisell. It's been confirmed tonight that a struggling secondary school in Kent, where pupils were found to be using foul, homophobic, racist and sexist language, will now be split into two new schools, each run by a different academy trust in an effort to improve standards. Last year, the Oasis Academy on the Isle of Sheppey was rated inadequate by inspectors. The school has never had a good rating. The decision to split the school this way has been made in agreement with the government and is subject to a consultation, as Charlie Rose reports.
The end of the school day on the Isle of Sheppey, and soon these pupils will see school life here undergo a fundamental change when the Oasis Academy is replaced by two new schools, each one run by a different trust.
We've explained to our children that there's going to be change and obviously it's going to be a lot better for them.
Stop all the bullying in it, and I just think it's a good idea to have two separate schools instead of one joint one.
There won't be so many children in one school and it'll be separated.
Do you think the change will be disruptive to pupils in any way?
My daughter thinks so. Yeah, she's having quite bad anxiety about it already. But hopefully it'll be a smooth running thing and fingers crossed.
Since it was founded in 2009, the Oasis Academy has struggled. The school has never received a good Ofsted report, and last year it was rated inadequate by inspectors, who found pupils using foul, homophobic, racist and sexist language.
Well, this academy is already spread across two sites, but the plan is to transform it into two brand new schools. One run by the Lee Academies Trust, the other by the East Kent Colleges Group, which already runs a primary school on the island and a further education college, both of which are rated outstanding by Ofsted.
Mike Whiting was in charge of education at Kent County Council when the Oasis Academy opened its doors, and he's still a county councillor on the island.
Why would splitting the school in this way be the right thing to do?
I think having the two separate trusts running two separate schools will be able to offer more of a choice to those parents. So parents that are looking perhaps for a more vocational education for their child will be able to find it on Sheppey. Children, those looking perhaps for a more academic route for their child will be able to find it. And I think that's going to be the key, is parental choice and increasing that parental choice.
In Sittingbourne, they've got two grammar schools and they've got three high schools, three very good high schools, which means that 1,000 children a day are bused from Sheppey to Sittingbourne. Now, if we had similar system on Sheppey with a choice, I believe that would replicate that, and that's why I think it will be a success.
The Department for Education said the two trusts will consult with the community on their plans before a final decision is taken by ministers.
Well, Charlie is on the Isle of Sheppey live for us this evening. Charlie, a big change in the education provision there on the Isle of Sheppey, but will it work?
Well, Ellie, the parents obviously hope so. Every one of them I spoke to today supported the plan. In fact, one said that anything would be better than the status quo. Now, the last time there was more than one secondary school on this island, you have to go back to the 1960s. And one education expert suggested to me that failure on the island has been going on for about 40 years, but he said that the trusts wouldn't be taking on this project if they weren't confident of success. Now, This evening we have no idea of any timescale as to when any changes might come in, but the Oasis Academy Trust said in the meantime its priority was young people in the wider community, and it said it would continue to build on the progress made in its latest Ofsted report. Ellie.
Charlie, thank you. A man has been jailed for 11 years for leading a people smuggling racket using small boats to transport migrants across the Channel to Kent and Sussex. Huwa Rahimpour, who's 30 and originally from Iran, was directing the network from his home in London. It's thought they smuggled around 10,000 people into the UK. Chrissy Reedy reports.
Huwa Rahimpour operated a sprawling criminal network believed to have smuggled some 10,000 migrants on small boats into the UK. The 30-year-old, a migrant himself, was arrested at his home in London, from where he directed the operation, sourcing boats from across Europe.
This is a money-making business. So on one crossing alone, the OCG, the organised crime group, will get a profit of anything from £175,000 to £260,000.
An investigation into Rahimpour began following the seizure of a number of small boats and motors found in cars near the Belgian-French border. Phone analysis showed the drivers had been in contact with a UK-based phone number. At this raid in Germany, police seized hundreds of life jackets and inflatable boats that would have been used by the gang.
Much of the conspiracy, much of obviously the organisation happens abroad, happens in Europe. So therefore, our relationship with Europol and other European countries are absolutely critical in relation to the identification.
Huwa Rahimpour was extradited to face trial in Bruges, where today he was jailed for 11 years. Another 19 people were convicted alongside him and handed jail terms of between 30 months and 8 years. Chrissy Reedy, BBC South East Today.
A jury has heard that an 18-month-old boy died from a significant and sustained assault with injuries from head to toe. A trial at Maidstone Crown Court was told that Alfie Phillips, who died near Faversham, had 70 marks, bruises and cuts on his body. A pathologist said that some were bite marks. Jack Benham and Sian Hedges are accused of murdering Alfie in a caravan during lockdown in 2020. They deny the charges. A new respite garden has been built in Crawley in just 6 days. Teams from a financial company converted a site filled with 200 tonnes of mud into a garden and memory pathway for St Catherine's Hospice. It's hoped the garden will give people a place to take some time out, reflect and remember loved ones. A new section of coastal path has been opened in Sussex. The 44-mile-long stretch runs from Shoreham by Sea to the mouth of Chichester Harbour. It forms part of a 2,700-mile trail around England, which will be known as the King Charles III England Coast Path. The boss of Ryanair has called for the chief executive of the National Air Traffic Control Service, known as NATS, to resign or be dismissed after a system failure caused hundreds of flight cancellations at Gatwick on the August bank holiday. Appearing before MPs on the Transport Select Committee, the chief executive of NATS, Martin Rolfe, apologised for the disruption, but Michael O'Leary said he should be removed from his role.
It's within his competence to fully staff his NATS system, as he assured us this year he would and has repeatedly failed to do so, and I don't believe he should continue as Chief Executive of NATS. He should be resigned or be dismissed, and then we might get somebody competent in there to run the system and avoid these repeats of this shambles over the coming weeks and into next summer as well.
Well, our political editor Charlotte Wright joins us live now from Westminster. And Charlotte, this was an air traffic control failure that actually caused a lot of disruption at that busy time of year.
Yeah, it really was a nightmare, wasn't it? Airports all over the country affected, including Gatwick. Thousands of passengers either stranded or delayed, and all on the August bank holiday Monday, with a knock-on effect for days afterwards. You heard there the airlines are really annoyed about it. They think they should be reimbursed for the millions of pounds that they spent putting passengers up in hotels. But MPs also heard today from the chief executive of the National Air Traffic Control, who explained how it happened and who said actually it's because a highly unusual piece of information went into the automated system, and the system then shut itself down, meaning humans had to go in to try to resolve it.
I apologise for what happened on that day, but ultimately what I am responsible for is making sure that every single one of the 5,500 flights that did fly that day were operated safely, and that's something that I will always prioritise over any other consideration, which is not to say I don't take responsibility, but it absolutely is the priority of the company.
Well, he also said that the problem is now fixed, so it won't happen again. But we do know that the Civil Aviation Authority is conducting its own investigation, and we'll wait to hear what the MPs in the hearing today think should happen next.
Charlotte, thank you. Prisons across the southeast are struggling to recruit enough staff, with officers bussed into Kent from the north of England to meet minimum safety standards. The Chief Inspector of Prisons says staffing pressures are particularly acute at the 3 jails on the Isle of Sheppey. As Leanne Rinney reports, there's been a sharp increase in assaults and officers taking sick leave.
The first time I walked the wing, I was terrified. But that was before I spent time here.
It's the first ever national campaign to recruit thousands of extra prison officers.
For me, being part of a team is just absolutely everything.
But behind the smiles and the slogans, assaults in prisons in the southeast have increased by almost 20% over the last year, and staff going sick for mental health reasons has nearly doubled in just 5 years. Alex South from Greenhithe spent a decade in the service before walking away.
We've gone way past the point of what you realistically expect to encounter in prison. You know, I've been present for instances where officers have been assaulted with fists and with weapons as well. You know, and in my time in a local prison, the weapons were real knives that were being dropped off outside cell windows by drones. And the staff who go every day, you know, they're not just a uniform. They're real people who are seeing this stuff. I think it's pretty understandable for people to decide that maybe for their own health, the safest thing to do is to just remove themselves from that environment.
The Ministry of Justice says it wants to recruit an extra 5,000 prison officers over the next few years, as new figures released this week show prisons are close to reaching full capacity, with only 500 places left across the country.
We're also seeing the staffing pressures within the prisons in Kent, Surrey and Sussex at exactly the same time that we've got enormous population pressures as well. So not only are there not enough officers, but there are more and more prisoners coming into the system at the moment.
Michael Alexander is a prison officer at HM Swaleside on the Isle of Sheppey, where they currently have to bus officers in from the north of England just to meet staffing levels.
There has been challenging incidents, there's been challenging times, there's been situations where I thought, what am I doing here? But the camaraderie that you have with your colleagues, I'd say this job is 90% in your head. If you have got it to get through that day, walk out the gate, have that evening and come back through the gate the next day, it's a job for you.
To try and ease the pressure on prison staff and free up more space, the government's just announced some less serious offenders could be released early on probation.
By doubling up cells where it is safe to do so, speeding up the deportation of foreign national offenders and delaying non-essential maintenance projects to bring cells back into use, we have freed up an extra 2,600 places since September last year alone.
The government says it's now providing £400 million in funding to create more spaces, as well as focusing on recruiting and retaining more prison staff. But for those that have already left the service, they say the recruitment campaign will only be a success if those that do decide to join choose to stay rather than walk away. Leanne Rinney, BBC South East Today.
There's growing alarm in East Kent over plans by the National Grid to erect new pylons and infrastructure on the Minster Marshes near Richborough, which residents say will cause serious damage to a site of special scientific interest and the wildlife that lives there. A series of campaign meetings are being held in advance of an official public consultation that begins next week. Our environment correspondent Yvette Austin reports.
10 years ago, and the Richborough skyline was changed forever when the old fossil fuel burning power station was demolished. The vision back then for the site was of a green energy park. What's evolving is more of a huge hub, taking in more of the surrounding countryside, and local campaigners aren't happy.
This used to be the old railway sidings where often coke and coal was delivered to the power station, and since the power station site closed, nature's reclaimed it and it's become something really special.
Last night, local people came together to discuss proposals by the National Grid to erect new pylons and build a 30-metre tall converter station stretching across nearly 15 acres. According to the National Grid, it's all part of a plan to cope with increased electricity demand, an undersea cable linking Suffolk to Kent, so that power generated by the wind turbines along the east coast of Britain on windy days like today can be pushed down to Kent. And it can work in reverse too.
We do seem to be looking at the wrong end of the problem. So 17,100 houses are going to be built, none of them with solar panels or any form of energy producing. Maybe if we can look at turning each new building into its own little power generation unit, then the pull on the National Grid would be less.
Richborough has already seen much grid development. A converter station, which changes electricity between DC and AC currents, was constructed about 5 years ago as part of the Nemo link, which connects us electrically with Belgium. Large-scale battery storage is also being built. Many people think enough is enough.
When I was a boy, I used to see the wildlife and ducks and geese and loads of waders follow the river line. And now you're going to have a barrier across it, which makes it really, really damaging, potentially fatal, and it's certainly going to significantly reduce numbers of wildlife in that area.
The plan could also involve taking down a landmark, which conservationists say has become home to ravens and peregrine falcons.
And we've got some really, really special wildlife using this area. We've got nightingales, we've got turtle doves, we've got tawny owls, long-eared owls, short-eared owls, we've got water voles, we've got beavers. The list goes on. It's incredibly special. And this development is going to severely disrupt and, if not destroy, that habitat.
The National Grid says it's giving careful consideration to environmental and community impacts. Yvette Austin, BBC South East Today, Richborough.
Now, in the words of their manager, Sheppey United's achievement last night in reaching the FA Cup first round for the first time is a fairy tale come true. The team, the lowest ranked side in this season's competition, beat Billericay Town on penalties to set up a home tie against League 2 Walsall. So, Sheppey are currently in the Isthmian League South East. Let's go up from there. They are in Level 8, past Level 7, Level 6, Level 5, home to the National League, and all the way up to Level 4, which is League 2, where Walsall reside, which is who they are playing. And you can see Crawley Town and Gillingham there in that top league as well. As Ian Palmer reports, fans are hoping a classic giant killing is on the cards.
Into the first round of the FA Cup for the first time. Fans and players share the moment.
Mate, when that final penalty went in, it was just sheer relief, like achievement as well, like sort of getting first round proper. The club ain't done this before, and like for the fans and the community and everything, it's just massive for everyone. And it just went a little bit crazy, to be honest, mate.
Dan Bradshaw scored Sheppey's goal before going off with injury. The club chairman spent most of the early hours celebrating. You couldn't have believed when you took over as chairman 10 weeks ago that you were getting qualified for the first round of the FA Cup.
Not at all, not at all. We've only actually played 3 league games since I've been here, and we're middle of October. So the cup one we've had, not just FA Cup, other cups as well, but it's just taken over the whole club.
Now, the FA Cup is the oldest football competition in the world. And to get through each round, you need to have nerves of steel and lots of courage. And they'll have to have plenty of that for the next round, because they've got Walsall, a League 2 club, and it's going to be tough. If 180 minutes of football can't separate two sides, then penalties will. Fans were delighted by the outcome.
It was just phenomenal. Seeing Aidan save that penalty and then Jacob to finish it off, just the place went wild. It was amazing.
Can you believe it?
It hasn't happened in my lifetime, so no, not really. Getting a league club as well is really good, and at home. I mean, you always want a home fixture with this sort of stuff. So yeah, it's going to be a good day. Win, lose, draw, whatever. You know, it's going to be a great day.
It's really good for the club, and let's hope they get a win and get someone big in the next round.
So let the first round begin. The match against Walsall is in 2 weeks. The magic of the FA Cup endures. The dream is still alive and the excitement is building. Ian Palmer at the Total Power Stadium, Sheerness.
Live music venues have had a tough few years, hit by the impact, of course, of the pandemic and rising energy costs. Some have been forced out of business altogether. And as Piers Hopkirk reports, those that remain fear they could lose the business rates reductions that have helped to keep them afloat.
For many, they're the lifeblood of the local music scene. Compact venues where you can catch a band in close-up.
So this is the venue, the booking hall.
Many venues like this have enjoyed business rates relief of 75%, but there are fears that this might change in the Chancellor's autumn statement.
Our operating profit for the year would basically be eaten up by those business rates. Venues on this level, on this grassroots small level, do not make a huge operating profit. Some don't make any profit at all. So it would be devastating for the local community and the musicians that regularly play here.
And one of those musicians, guitarist Dave Austin.
And obviously we'll likely never get to play stadiums and arenas. That's when places like this becomes our Wembley, our O2 Academy, you know. And without it, we'll have nothing left.
The last thing we need now is a removal of this 75% business rates relief. You know, if anything, it should be 100% relief, as it was during the pandemic, to allow those businesses to restabilise.
This is the Lighthouse in Deal. It prides itself on offering a stage to an eclectic array of music and musicians.
I think you're at a real risk of stunting any creativity on a local and national level. I think the UK used to be a real front runner in the arts, but it's be hard to argue at nowadays.
A Treasury spokesperson said it recognises the challenges music venues face, which is why it slashed bills by 75%. But business rates are also a vital part of paying for local services, and all taxes are kept under review. It's all eyes now on the Chancellor. It's he, of course, who calls the tune. Piers Hopkirk, BBC South East Today, Deal.
Now, what do you remember of your science lessons? Bunsen burners, test tubes and exercise books. Well, for pupils of a junior school in Thanet, today's science lesson was a much more out-of-this-world experience as they got to fire questions at those on board the International Space Station. Is it cold up there? Is space better suited to girls than boys? Peter Whittlesey, find out.
In the middle of your screen, the first element of the International Space Station launched on November 20th, 1998.
Around 11 o'clock this morning, the International Space Station was 1,430 miles above St Peter's Junior School in Thanet.
NA1SS, November Alpha 1, Sierra Sierra.
Back on Earth, these pupils were ready to reach for the stars and talk to a real-life astronaut in space.
Scheduled contact with the International Space Station. Over.
Golf Bravo 4, Sierra Tango, this is November Alpha 1, Sierra.
Let's show you Isabella's face again in slow motion. It sums up the magical moment contact was made.
I thought, what if she doesn't come onto the radio, and what if we don't get this contact? But then her voice came over the radio and it was life-changing. I just felt so happy. Hello Jasmine and welcome to St Peter's and Thanet Primary School. Are you ready for the first question? Over.
Astronaut Jasmine Mogbelli was answering the questions. With the space station travelling at 17,500 miles per hour, it would soon be out of range, so the questions came thick and fast.
This is Harper. Is it hot or cold in space? And if it's hot, how do you keep cool? And if it's cold, how do you keep warm in your spacesuit? Over.
Harper, that's a great question. It is hot when we're facing the sun, and it is very cold when we are blocked from the sun.
This is Rebecca. Is it really true that girls are better suited to space than boys? Over.
Rebecca, yes, definitely.
It's like really, really awesome to be asking like a question to an
a real astronaut.
Found it cool that they were actually up there answering our questions, like really live.
The school thanked those who made this possible, saying it's proof to our students that with determination, the sky isn't even the limit. Peter Whittlesey, BBC South East Today, St Peters.
Now more on the sky now, because you may have noticed it has been increasingly wet and windy and there are some weather warnings in force. Nina is here to tell us more. Hello Nina, this is actually a named storm, isn't it?
It is, Ellie. It's our second named storm, Storm Babette. The worst of the effects across parts of Scotland. They've got a red and an amber warning. We've got a yellow warning, but nonetheless, stormy conditions to come.
And unfortunately, it's going to get worse, isn't it?
Yes, well, I think what will happen is we'll get a cumulative effect. We'll see the rainfall today, and then there's going to be more to come over the next couple of days. And already you can see stormy conditions that we've had through the day in Brighton today. There will be more scenes like this to come over the next couple of days. Perhaps a little bit of brightness, though, in between some heavy showers for tomorrow. And then I think as we go through away from the showers, then we'll start to see some heavier rain arriving. And that is on Friday, already on the saturated ground. And so we've got our yellow warning. That covers us through onto Friday's weather. But this evening, it's pretty wet out there. More rain to move its way northeastwards, accompanied by some strong winds as well. Does mean it's not going to be particularly cold, and the rain will have eased off a touch as we start tomorrow morning. Temperatures started the day 14 to 15 degrees. So we will see these showers scattered around. There could be some fairly frequent and heavy downpours, but in between, always a few drier and brighter spells. As we go to the afternoon, temperatures will pick up to around about 18 to 19, but still the potential for some heavy showers. And as we go through the evening, we could just see another cluster moving their way eastwards. A bit of a lull then at first as we go into Friday morning, but then the next batch of rain is set to arrive. Really wet start Friday morning, 12 to 14 degrees. So yes, it's going to be mild, but this is the rain we're perhaps most concerned about. We could see some localised flooding and travel disruption. 6, maybe 12 hours of rain. It could give us a couple of inches more than that through the day on Friday. Temperatures 16 to 17 degrees. After Friday's heavy rain, the low pressure, our storm, does finally push to the north of us. So things will steadily dry out through the weekend, but at the same time, it is also going to be turning a little colder. So the stormiest weather to come over the next couple of days, and then a bit of a respite for the weekend, Ellie.
Thank you very much, Nina. And you can, of course, always keep up to date by checking out the website. That is it from me and the rest of the team for the moment. Piers Hopkirk, though, is back with your late news update at 10:30. Bye-bye for now.